The Prime Minister has welcomed the release of economist Sean Turnell from a Myanmar prison as he prepares for talks with the US Vice President Kamala Harris and others at the APEC summit in Thailand. Our political editor Andrew Clennell's in Thailand and he's got the details.
There was good news for Prime Minister Anthony Albanese as he flew from Bali to Thailand for the APEC Leaders Summit. The news of the release of Australian Sean Turnell from a Myanmar prison. The PM had mentioned the case of Turnell at the ASEAN summit in Phnom Penh in his speech to the conference, and he spoke about the case to leaders, including the Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen. Within a week, Mr Turnell, a former economic advisor to Aung San Suu Kyi, was being released. Last night, the Prime Minister welcomed the news.
I've just spoken to Sean Turnell, who's been released from 650 days of unfair, unjust imprisonment, and this is just a wonderful outcome.
The Prime Minister said Mr Turnell was in good spirits and they shared a joke.
The Australian Embassy would give him food hampers, and they'd be in tote bags with the Australian crest on it. And he would put the tote bags at where the bars were on the cell in which he was being detained, so that both he could see and the guards who were detaining him could see the Australian crest, so that he could keep that optimism. He's from my electorate and apologised for not voting at the election. I assured him he wouldn't be fined and that it was understandable.
At the APEC summit, Mr Albanese will meet with US Vice President Kamala Harris and the leaders of Thailand and the Philippines. APEC follows the G20 summit in Bali, which finished with the spectacle of Chinese President Xi castigating Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau over leaking information from a discussion they had. There were no preconditions, Sky News understands, on the release of information by Anthony Albanese from his bilateral meeting with President Xi on Tuesday night. Also emerging from this week of summits is the possibility of the French, dumped by Scott Morrison for the AUKUS nuclear submarines deal, gaining an interim subs contract with Australia.
We're focused on the process that we are engaged in with the United Kingdom and the United States in determining what is the optimal pathway forward in respect of the platform that we ultimately adopt in relation to our future nuclear submarine, and France is aware of that.
French President Emmanuel Macron, speaking after his bilateral meeting with Anthony Albanese on Wednesday, said Scott Morrison's AUKUS deal threatened the Chinese with nuclear confrontation and put Australia more at risk.